Well, good evening, everyone. It's Wild and Woolly outside, and it's good to be with you guys after another great showdown victory and quite an interesting weekend of footy. I'm joined tonight by God, how am I going? By Macca and Nikki. How you going?
Yeah, evening, Phoenix.
We're going well. Just waiting for your apology.
For what?
What you said on Tuesday night.
What did I say? Oh, there's so many things I said.
You said that we were going to smash Port, and we're all going, no.
Yeah.
And you said, I will be willing to come on Sunday night and then apologise.
Well, we did smash them.
We did not.
We did smash them.
Not on the scoreboard.
We just didn't smash them on the scoreboard. Come on now, you got to be more specific than that.
No, you can't worm out.
I was so tense.
It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was the most physical game we played this year.
Do you know, though, I never felt like we were going to lose the match.
Not when
I was nervous.
I bet when we went three goals down straight away.
No, I mean, how many times has that happened? I never.
That's what we said was going to happen, Macca.
Yeah.
Well, I know that. But I know, and I must admit, I wasn't panicking at that stage, but I thought, here we go again. Now, are we going to fight back? Yes, we did.
Yeah, no, I didn't feel uncomfortable at any stage. I felt like, even in that first quarter, and hang on, let's just straighten this up and just do the format, shall we? Before we get on to the Crows Port game, let's just run through some weekend's results. And we had the Swans.
Nightmare tipping.
It was a bit in the end, yeah, today and last night. Swans going down by a point to the Magpies. I thought the Maggies played well, and I did say that the Maggies just needed a bit of a functioning forward line. Well, you don't really need one if the opposition are playing that badly themselves. The Giants predictably got up over the Kangaroos down in Tasmania by, 42 points. The Tigers in a minor upset over the Eagles, although the Eagles never travel well, but that bandwagon's certainly going pretty strong down in Tigerland.
I did tip them in my tips.
Yeah, not a bad tip at all, Macca.
I think I picked Richmond.
Cats disappointingly got up over the Demons. I thought the Demons might steal that one, but
they should not have.
29 points in the end.
Yeah, but it was a bugger, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then now it gets interesting. The Dockers, 16-point winners over the Dogs after being down for a bit, weren't they? I think.
Yeah, I can't wait.
They got ahead quite strongly, and then the Dogs came back, and the Dogs actually I think led by 14 points at three-quarter time.
Three-quarter time, that's right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Freo just ran over them in the end.
Yeah.
Dogs do not travel well though.
Well,
not
say
over
that,
to
but they won an elimination final over in West Coast last year. So I didn't think it was going to be the travel was going to be an issue for them. But there you go. Anyway, the Saints getting up over the Lions. The Lions coming back a bit towards the end, but the Saints always in control of that one. The Blues and the Bombers fought out a very wet match. The Blues getting up by 15 points. And
Hawthorn at bottom of the ladder.
Let me just say that I did say on Scorpus's show on Thursday night, I didn't pick the Suns, no one would be that stupid, but I did say that I felt that the Suns would have something to prove and that Ablett would have something to prove and that he was being played in the middle and it wouldn't be as big a blowout as what people were predicting. Well, here we are. It was a reverse blowout.
Yeah.
139-53, just incredible. Who would have predicted the Hawthorn Football Club 0-3, the Sydney Football Club 0-3? Quite interesting. Changing of the guard, perhaps, in the AFL this year.
No, look, Hawthorn, there's not much there. They let Lewis. He moved Lewis. Well, I don't know Lewis so much, but he did move Mitchell on. And this is the intelligentsia of Hawthorn in the centre of the ground. I mean. The Mitchell who they brought in football, and what's his name, Jaeger O'Meara, he was very, very disappointed today. Really disappointed today, and he was as he was last week. I don't think he's. I mean, he was out of footy for a long time, but he may not be the big bargain they thought. But they don't have it in the middle of the ground, and as we know, that's where it begins and ends these days. If you've got nothing in the middle, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
And when we were talking last year about, with O'Meara and Prestia, and for a long time, ever since they both came onto the scene, Prestia was the one that had always impressed me more. O'Meara, to me, had seen a front runner. Yes, he's got all these fabulous skills and he's got that speed, but now with that knee injury and everything else, that's kind of impacted on him. And, yeah, he's not the player that a lot of people think if he doesn't have that other quality around him.
I think the big stat that shows up where he's at the moment is he's handball happy, and what that says to me is he's struggling to break free of packs and find some space. So, and that's understandable given his lengthy time off. But you're right. Them trying to learn, like him and Mitchell, trying to learn Hawthorn's system and become the generals that they replaced. That's going to take time, but
yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how things go. If Hawthorn do miss the 8 this year, what money Clarkson going to Gold Coast next year?
Well, that's an interesting thing because there's been a little bit of chat that they should do that, and they probably should. And when you look at the prospect of what is on the list of the Gold Coast and what's on the list of Hawthorn at the moment, the amount of youth and potential that's on the Gold Coast list is massive compared to what's on the Hawthorn list. And if I was going to be a coach, not that I ever want to be a coach, but if I was going to be a coach and I had to make a choice between those two clubs, I would definitely take the Gold Coast at the moment.
Well, the Suns shouldn't be as bad as they are. I think we've all said that at various points.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. But the match in question that everyone wants to talk about is the showdown 42, and it was the Crows getting up 15-10-100, another one or triple figure score to Port Adelaide, 12 goals, 11-83, so a margin of 17 points in the end. Initial thoughts, guys? Macca?
Well, I thought we played as well as we normally do. And I take my hat off to Port Adelaide. They've improved massively this year compared to last year. They are a very, very competitive unit. They're a tough unit. The difference between us and them at the moment is I think we've got a much more clearly defined game plan. And on top of that, we also have a very versatile game plan that we can win 1, 2 or 3 ways these days instead of just a standard way. And I think we've had to do that the last couple of weeks. When we get behind, we have had to adjust our game plan. Port Adelaide, their game plan it seems pretty simple, but it's not very refined. It seems to be just to bash your way through and go flat out. And they've got a fair bit of talent in that side, and they've been underperforming for 2 years. And I feared it, Nicky feared it. Peter feared it. We feared we'd be in for a good tussle, and we got an excellent tussle out of them. But you are right, though, Phoenix. We are a better side, and our supremacy showed in the end. And in particular, our leaders in the end showed us what leaders can do. Rory Sloane, outstanding, and Tex Walker, outstanding.
What do you reckon, Nick?
It was so weird leading into that game because it's a 7 o'clock start. I was just so nervous. I couldn't eat dinner. I was that nervous. It's like, I'm not having food. I just have to, no. And we were discussing just a little bit before we started, I was never scared that we were never not in control, but I just didn't want to lose to them. That feeling just kind of came over me. But yeah, just watching it, I think what we can take out of it is that was very much a finals pressure game.
Correct.
that was, as the players said afterwards, I think Sony and both Tex in their media interviews said that normally you get a hot 10 minutes in the first quarter, but not for the whole first quarter, and then not for 4 quarters. And it was on for 4 quarters. So what it did was also show our coaching group about which of our younger players went to water a little bit. They were still not bad, but not at the level that we expect. And that's kind of good to see that before a final series, so you can work on that.
Yeah, there was a couple that did, and Peter liked me for saying this, but his man, Atkins, I thought was very, very ordinary compared
We'll get to individuals in a minute, Mako. Hold fire.
Oh, no, I was only just supporting what Nicky was saying about the couple of young blokes, and I was just going to nominate a couple.
Yeah, and one senior bloke.
About McKay.
Yeah.
He could. I forgive him for his game because of that brilliant goal at the time that he got it.
Well,
that was key.
He's turned into a goal kicker this year. I don't know what the heck's going on, but anyway, personally, I don't rate Port at all, to be honest. I think they played with a lot of heart, and I wrote in my preview article for Crows Fan Central, and I said it during the week, that they play with hustle and bustle, and they play on emotion. And as soon as we withstood the emotional tidal wave that was predictable in the first quarter, and we maintained our structures and we worked our game plan, and we sucked the life out of the crowd. The crowd was quiet for long periods of time during the second and third quarter. I just felt like we were in control, and they don't play with system. We play with an extremely good system at the moment, and they leave it up to too few, and they don't have a forward line that's going to kick too many winning scores.
No, they really do rely on their midfield.
Yeah, well, their forward
kick
line
their
hardly
goals.
kicked the goals.
They do have an outstanding midfield, and
Only their first rotation, Macca.
Well, it's a pretty bloody good first rotation, I can tell you.
But you need more than that. You need more than that. And let's face it, when your first rotation includes a rookie who was clearly overawed last night and only got one contested possession for the match, you're asking too much of too few. Anyway, let's get into some head-to-head stats. And we outdisposed them by about 50, 387 to 336. We kicked the ball a little bit more than what we usually do. 223 kicks. We outmarked them. We broke even in tackles, 80 to 79. Sauce came good after sort of getting a bit touched up in the first quarter. Hit-outs were relatively even. The frees, not that you'd know it by reading the Port Adelaide Footy Club Big Footy board today. The frees were in their favour, 26-21. And I think where it gets telling is in contested possessions. We've been identified, and we've identified ourselves as Adelaide being a slightly more outside running team, and yet each game this year so far we've won the contested possession count, and we did so again on Saturday night, 176 to 145. We also won the uncontested possession count because we were able to maintain control of the ball. We went at a 70% disposal efficiency to Port's 66.4. Contested marks actually beat us in the end, but here's the stat again. Marks inside 50, 17 to 9.
Yep.
Even without, I knew the loss of JJ wouldn't hinder those stats terribly much.
You're a cruel bugger.
And considering
Mitchie
how
McGovern
much...
didn't take one either.
Well, no, because he should have had so many free kicks.
Yeah,
the amount of time that they hung on to, blocked, and
disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful.
And that when Sloane took that amazing contested grab in the forward line, and he got sandwiched between Walker and McGovern, and McGovern was clearly pushed into that.
Yeah.
And if you watch that vision, when McGovern landed and you saw that Sonny was injured and he was trying to rub his corking out, McGovern walks away and he actually feels for that same part of the high hamstring that he then did later. I reckon there was either a corky or something happened there.
I reckon he gave his hamstring a slight strain there, because I saw exactly what you said just then, and I thought to myself then, I think he's done a hammy, but he played on, and then of course I think he's really done it.
Well, the reports were that he was getting a fair amount of work done
Treatment.
on his lower back at half time. So wouldn't mind betting that there was some back-related issues there with the hammy, especially when it's high like that.
That's what happens.
And at the moment, it looks like a 4-week hamstring for Mitch. But thankfully, Josh Jenkins, the high-flying Josh Jenkins, will be back next week. So,
your man Jenkins,
my man JJ. Anyway, but look, I think. Go on.
I'm just going to say one thing about our forward line. Otten gives us a crash the pack type as well.
Yep.
So even with McGovern going down, we know that he often will crash the pack and go for those marks. And we're going to get... We got that last night from Otten.
Well, I take my hat off to Andy Otten, because he's been out of this level of football for a long, long time. And
what are you wearing a hat for?
It's cold. Well, he's wearing a beanie.
How the hell can I take one off if I don't put one on, mate?
Fair enough. That's a good call, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, but coming back to Otten, though, he's been out for a long time, and to come back and play one end of the ground and then switch to the other end of the ground and then be asked to ruck as well. And look, I think he's done everything we've asked of him, and I know he's not a quick player, but he has his ability to get the football. And he took 2 great marks on the lead, and he kicked straight for goal. We'll miss McGovern's. McGovern's got rare qualities.
Maniac pressure.
The magical thing, but what Andy Otten will give you, he'll give you plenty of fight, plenty of tone, and he'll be still very dangerous around the place.
Yep. You're right, Macca. Andy Otten's always been a very smart footy player, and I don't think any of us really expected him to come back this season in such good nick. He's never going to be the quickest player you've ever seen in your life, but he always gives you contests in the air. He's got good hands, and he positions himself pretty well. So whether he stays up forward or whether we just sort of swing a few back and forward, because you got to think now that with Otten and Lever in the team, you could almost do a bit of a swing between those two, because Jakey Lever doesn't mind a mark either.
Not that Lever's ever played as a forward, though. That is the difference.
He has kicked a goal, though.
and love about it.
He loved it. When he was interviewed the other day, and it was totally irrelevant to the conversation, but he managed to mention the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? It was pretty damn good. Just on that Otten not being quick, he went toe-to-toe with Polak down a wing, and he kept pace with him.
Yeah, but
so he's not slow.
Polak had his feet chained together at the time.
But he's not Cameron quick.
No, let's be serious. Otten is slow compared to the average AFL footballer, but he's smart and he cuts corners.
It's not only straight line pace either, Nicky. He doesn't have the agility that he once had. Doesn't have the lateral movement. Yeah. But certainly an invaluable inclusion, and I think even the coaching staff might be a little bit surprised at what Andy's brought to the team. And I'm with a couple of other people who have been on the boards over the last few days. He doesn't come out for mine. He's part of the best 22 as it stands at the moment.
Can't see how he can come out.
I agree. All right, let's go through some disposal winners. And we had Matty Crouch on 32 touches. Pleasingly, 21 kicks, 11 handballs, which is exactly the type of game we want from Matt. I thought Matt was really good in the first quarter when the heat was on. And I felt like he had a pretty even game. 5 tackles, 2 inside 50s. He had 8 clearances, and he got down back a bit too with 4 rebound 50s. I thought it was a pretty good game from Matt.
What I love about Crouchy is the fact that he loves the rough stuff and the tough stuff. And when you've got games like we had on Saturday night, I mean, he performs. He really does. You know, I think he won the previous showdown medal, didn't he?
Yes.
Yes. Another one before that, didn't he?
Well,
no,
he has won one.
Yeah,
He won the last one.
Yeah, I thought he won the last one last year. And so, he's a big-time performer. He loves it when it's tough. And I saw him there a couple of times and pushing and shoving affairs. And you can tell he's been raised tough by his brother. And, and also one of your early criticisms of him wasting the ball, he's really starting to think about what he's doing with the ball.
Yep, he's I think I read somewhere that he'd actually been concentrating on using the ball by foot a little bit more, and it did show. Obviously, not only in the stats, but I thought some of his disposal by foot was telling. So that was a good game from Matt. Rory Sloane, an absolute warrior, showdown medalist, 31 touches, 15 kicks, 16 handballs, 24 contested possessions. If you don't mind, Macca.
Yeah, that's just immense.
Outstanding, bloody outstanding. It's all you can say is this guy's gold. He's absolute gold. And they bash him, they crash him, they hit him. He goes. They
wave flags in his face and he just smiles.
Yeah. He goes where angels fear to tread, but he just doesn't care, and he comes out to win it. And I tell you what, he is a marvellous example to the rest of the side. I mean, he's virtually another captain when he's not captain, if you understand what I mean by that.
Yep. Look, kicked a goal, 9 tackles, 4 inside. He does it at both ends of the ground. This is the thing, 4 inside 50s, 3 rebound 50s, 8 clearances. Like just the perfect game from Rory Sloane, I thought.
Yeah, he's an intelligent footballer. What you said is true. He was the one that dropped back when it was necessary to have somebody to drop back, and several times he saved us in the goal square, and when he's playing in the middle, and I think, it just shows the intelligence of this guy. And yet when the heat's on, we need a goal up forward, he's the one that takes the mark up there.
Yep.
And as Pikey said, him and Tex are those two, they're so invaluable because what they do is they make every other player around them better.
Yep.
Just because of their performance. And we're so incredibly lucky to have... I mean, if we had Sloane captain instead of Tex, I think we'd still be
losing anything.
No.
No.
So it's great because then you've got a guy who's up forward and you've got a guy who's in the midfield and does go down back. And so they can actually show those leadership qualities over the whole of the ground.
Yeah, very good, very true. Richie Douglas had 29 touches. I thought his was a pretty solid game. 18 kicks, 11 handballs, 7 tackles as well from Richie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, he knackered, Slotty.
Yeah.
I thought he played very well.
19 contested possessions, Macca, 7 clearances.
Yeah, but the only one question I would have, what was his efficiency rating with disposal, do you know?
It was down 55%.
I was going to say, though, because I thought that as the game went on, his kicking became a little bit looser. Whereas early in the piece, I thought he was pretty good. And then, but as the game went on, he was under a lot more pressure and more tired. It became a little bit sloppy. But in terms of his effort to get the football, it went without criticism.
Yep, definitely. He's turned into almost our second inside midfielder, which is surprising given his role last year. But quiet one last week, but I felt he bounced back really well this week. Second best for mine, though, was Tommy Lynch. 22 touches, 14 and 8, 7 marks, 3 tackles, 4 inside 50s. I just felt like he worked his arse off and was really effective in linking us up.
He wasn't a bad buy for a second round draft pick, was he?
No.
And he was a first round draft pick when the Saints took him.
Initially, he was, yeah.
Yeah, they just let him moulder in the background. But
they had too many others.
But he has got probably the highest work rate in the team because he must cover some crook old miles for the game. And
to be fair on St Kilda, it's taken him a while to build up that engine. And without that engine, he's probably just a good ordinary player. But with that work rate, it just takes him to another level.
I watch every game, and I remember when he was playing for St Kilda, and I was delighted when we got him because he used to he was the fill-in player, and he'd get a game, and I thought he'd play a very handy game, bang, straight out again when the other players came back. He just never got any continuity with St Kilda, and I know they had a pretty good team at the time, but gee, he was good enough to play, in my opinion, and I think there are little gems around like that, and he was just one of those gems that occasionally bob up, and he's been a beauty for us.
Yep. I thought third best for mine. Third best was Cole Hartigan. Only had the 16 disposals, but 2 marks. But his effort in keeping Robbie Gray quiet, and I know Gray's carrying groins, but even so, a size mismatch, one would say a class mismatch. But Hardo did really well on Robbie Gray. Faultless
almost, I was just going to say, Nicky, he didn't have a lobotomy before he ran out this week. I thought he played it pretty solid this week.
He's been playing it pretty solid for a long time, and I wish people would stop forgetting how he was when he first started and actually judge him on how he is now.
Nicky, I do. I judge him on how he goes every week. And last week, I think he had about 1 or 2, and the week before that he had 1 or 2. So, but this week he never had any of those that give away the gimme goal. So, I thought his game was excellent.
I'm going to have to credit my father with this particular point, is that Hartigan has played on some of the best full forwards. And so he has to understand how a really good full forward is supposed to play. And now they're playing Robbie Gray at full forward. He's not a full forward. He doesn't know how to replay as well as what a lot of those other ones do, which Hartigan has to play on in order to nullify. So Hartigan was actually anticipating. He was reading the midfield better than Gray was.
I don't disagree. Disagree.
Yeah, sorry. I don't agree with that, because Gray's a small forward. He wasn't really playing full forward. Dixon was playing full forward.
Correct. And also
he was playing out next to him.
But Robbie Gray's a smart
ass. They were playing him deep.
No, credit where it's due. Robbie Gray's a very smart footballer, and I thought that our bloke was Hartigan. He was on the top of his game mentally, the way he played him.
Yeah, and it showed, because when Gray went into the middle for a little while, that the tide did turn a little bit. But he just can't sustain it at the moment. He's obviously playing sore, and we saw what a difference that made to Luke Brown at the end of last season. So, it dials him down to mere mortal level, but around goals he's still dangerous, and I thought Hartigan did an excellent job. I also thought, of our other defenders, I thought Jake Kelly had his best game for the club. I thought Tales was solid, and I thought Luke Brown was pretty good as well.
Yeah, they were
Luke Brown was sensational on wingguard.
He did a very good job on him, and I think our whole defence, and including Kelly, I like Kelly's game. It was very hard to criticise any of them, and it's very hard to see any of them being replaced. Lever was just slightly short of a gallop, and a couple of times his judgment was slightly out. But I mean, he really will benefit from that game.
Yeah.
It's like a racehorse just having his first run from a spell. He'll just be better for it next time.
Yeah, we can't. Pardon me. We can't finish this up without mentioning our forward guns, Walker and Betts. Walker with 10 grabs and 17 disposals, kicked the 4 goals, including that bomb at the end there.
And he had a bad first half.
Yeah, it wasn't good in the first quarter particularly. I thought Cleary did pretty well, but Tex won out. Once we lost McGovern in that last quarter, Tex really sort of stepped up, and the goal from the members' wing side was actually a better goal than his long bomb at the end. But
was it? A hell of a good goal, that one.
Yeah, that's not an easy angle for a right footer.
No, wrong side of the ground and a long way out, and beautifully done. And when you look at his stats, Walker's, it's really an outstanding game for a centre forward. Yep. 17 disposals. He took 10 marks. He kicked 4 goal 1. I mean, that's just a top game for centre half forward.
+6 inside 50s, Macca. So not only was he taking them inside the 50 arc, but he was also pushing up the ground and feeding our forwards as well. And that's where our forward structure is working so well at the moment. We have that little elastic effect with Lynch and Walker. When Lynch is up, Walker's back, and when Walker's up, Lynch is back. and you got McGovern floating around in there, and JJ when he's free, although it was Ottens this time around, and then the smalls. It just works really well.
I'll tell you, I love Curtly Hampton's game too.
Yep, absolutely. He was in our honourable mentions. What do you have? He had 18 touches, 12 and 6, which was good, 3 marks. But again, the 9 tackles, he's turning into a bit of a tackling machine, as well as 6 inside 50s as well from Curtly. I thought a pretty good game from him.
Yeah, I thought tired a little bit in the last quarter, but he had given his all, and he missed last year at this level. And he's another one that's just going to get better as the season goes on. And if you drew a graph of his games with us so far, they're definitely on the way up.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
For me, his game, he was just in the wrong place slightly for some things, and he didn't quite have that instinctive knowledge of his teammates of where they're going to be. Because this is only his 3rd game really playing with these players. But there was enough there for me to see, he's just slowly getting the handle on it, and he's just going to get better and better as he gets to know in that type of game situation the rest of our players. So, there was one where Tax tapped it down and he'd just gone off to the left where he should have just gone to the right, and he would have had clean take. But that low-down take that he took... and then, which then became the really quick handball to Otten for Otten's second goal. That was just a fabulous, one take give. Not as good as Sloane's take it and handball in the same motion.
Yeah.
But, I think that's definitely his best game so far for us.
Yeah, definitely. Now, a couple of quiet ones we need to talk about, and I'm going to throw this bloke in here, even though his stats don't suggest he was quiet, but I felt like there was a few little red flags in this guy's game. Rory Laird, 25 touches, 14 and 11, 4 marks, 4 tackles, 2 inside 50s. On the surface, a solid game from Rory, and yet... For the past 2 weeks, what I've noticed with Rory is what we noticed in the final series last year, and that is a lack of composure under pressure.
I agree. No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look at his kick. Most of his kicks were the quick kick high up. And as soon as he kept doing that, I'm just like, Rory, settle.
Yeah, a couple of his handballs too were very panicked.
Yeah, you spotted him all right, because I thought he got a little bit better as the game went on, and his composure. He did get a little bit of composure, but it was very, very lacking early. And he was panicky, and it was the same as last week. His early ball handling wasn't up to his normal standard. So he just showed he's human, I guess. But he can do better, and as you say, his stats say he went well. But he can do better than that.
Yep. Wayne Miller, thoughts on his game?
Good on what he got, but good on what he did, but he didn't do enough.
I like your
someone else pointed out that.
Nikki.
Yeah, I thought he was a bit overawed. Those first couple of possessions that he had, the kicks that were a little bit short, and he just got shaky with the amount of pressure that was on. That's the way I felt, but he still kept plugging away at it, which is a positive. And somebody else noted that we see him pull out of contests a little bit to drop back, but he does it so many times that it seems to be quite a conscious decision. It's more a coached decision, and we want him to. Well, yeah, that's what I wasn't sure about. I'm saying this is what somebody on the board said what they thought it was. I think it might be a bit of both.
Nikki, there's
I think that we do want him to be that receiver, because we do know that his delivery can be superb. So you do want him on the outside to handball and or then kick it into our line, etc. And you don't want him to be the one going in.
No, but there's a bit of an art.
Yeah, I felt he was very overawed.
There's a bit of an art to hanging out, so making it look like you just can't get there in time.
Yeah.
And
David
I
McKay
think
does it really well.
he's been doing it for years. But Miller must have been watching.
Please don't watch D-Mac.
No, Miller is actually, and I suppose overall it is a good word because he's short stepping to make sure he's not in those physical contests sometimes, and I think that I do think the playing team want him as an outside player, but of course every outside player faces times when they've got to go for it and compete for it.
Yes, that's right.
Which he did, which he showed last year he could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a tough game, and I think there were a couple of times that he just took a little bit slower and shorter steps than he could have.
Yes.
But I think it'll come to him in time. I've seen other players that have got masses of skill start that way and end up very, very good players, and I think he will end up a good player.
Yep, I don't disagree. I think Wayne's got to realise where he sits in the game, though, and one thing that we were saying about Hampton in the first couple of games is even though his stats weren't high, he was still being involved and he was doing something, and that something was tackling. When you look at Miller's non-disposal stats, they're also very low, which means that unless he's got ball in hand, he's not working hard enough. And he's not getting ball in hand nearly often enough. 12 touches, 6 and 6, the 2 marks, the 2 tackles for the game, and not much else really. A couple of clangers and a couple of clearances. It's not a big game from Miller, and he's a first round draft pick, so the expectations on him are high. And I think over the next month, if they continue to play him, I think Wayne's got to work out how to get himself in amongst it a bit more.
Just on that particular point, you made a very good point about where he was taken in the draft, and because during the game, I did mentally flick across to Sam Powell-Pepper, who keeps stroking his hair lovingly all the time, and they were taken about in fairly similar spots in the draft. Miller is slightly higher, and Miller has been in the game now. This is his second year. Sam Powell-Pepper his first year, and one is ultra courageous, and the other one is, and the other one's not. And I know they're different type of players.
Mate. Yeah.
I know they're different type of players, but
one's also been playing against men more than what he was.
Oh, well, Miller was playing for the Eagles. Don't forget.
He was playing some of the SNFL, but he's also a different body shape to Powell-Pepper.
Yeah, I think what we're really saying is eat a bag of cement, Wayne.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's a pretty solid summary. Macca, he needs to harden up and he needs to get himself more involved in the game. And excuses are going to run out soon. We've got a couple in the twos, and we'll talk about them in a little minute that could very easily fill that role. Yep, absolutely. D-Mac, again. We're talking about people coming up from the twos. Well, the bloke that I'm interested in is Troy Menzel, because David McKay cannot continue, despite kicking that wonderful goal and despite being a little bit more attacking this season so far, he cannot continue to bring pullback numbers like 7 kicks, 4 marks in a 4 handballs in a game like that.
Now, be fair, he played a magical game. In fact, he showed you how to do the disappearing act in the game. That's about that bit of magic he showed us, apart from the goal. But being serious, that was a poor game, and I forgave him on the basis of that brilliant goal, which I think had a big say in our comeback at the time when we really needed a goal. But yeah, lousy game, and 1 or 2 more of those, David, and you won't be there, mate.
I did like hurting Young.
Yeah. But that's about it. And I think he did that by accident.
I think it was an accident.
Yeah.
Look,
I think Young did it himself, trying to get the free kick for in the back.
Now, Macca, I'm going to put this to you because this is my favourite stat. You know it is, and people are probably sick of me talking about it. But again, this is what I'm talking about in terms of the difference between the two teams' rotations. Tell me who Port's midfield are. Ebert?
Yeah.
Yep,
Ebert Wines.
90% time on ground for Ebert.
Yeah, Wines.
Wines had...
now.
where's Wines? He had 82% time on ground.
Boak,
84% time on ground. Pollock, 88% time on ground. Chuck in Wingard, 98% time on ground.
And the young Powell Pepper, young Sam Powell Pepper.
Yeah, he is only 68. But all of the rest of those people that you talked about, Sam Gray was 80% time on ground as well. They're all above 80%. Now, here's Adelaide's midfield rotation. Where are we? Rory Atkins, 83%. Cameron, 82%. Douglas, 81%. Matt Crouch, 79%. Sloane, 77%. D-Mac, 74%. Knight, 71%. Miller, 70%. Hampton, 65%. Therein lies our strength, Macca. These guys are fresh at the end of the game.
Very good point. Very good point. No, actually, we have to concede that you really have picked one up there, Phoenix. And the guys that you mentioned for us, actually, with the lowest amount of time on the ground, were the most influential.
Well, Riley Knight only had, if I remember rightly from the halftime show, I reckon he only had 3 touches up to halftime. Am I right, Nicky? Be pretty close to that.
Yeah, very low.
He didn't have...
Very low. It was very low.
Now, he ended up with 10 touches, but he was far more influential in the second half.
He had 14
for
the game.
I equate him to like what I saw from Menzel today. Now, Menzel only had 6 touches up until halftime in the SNFL. And when I saw that, I went, what? It felt like he had so many more possessions just because of his presence, his pressure, and what he does once he gets the ball. And Knight, to me, is a very similar player to that as well. That he's so quality.
Yeah.
Just that clever way that he held that mark in the goal square that he took, that he just put the arms around and he pushed with his chest. And, of course, they're all complaining going a push in the back. Well, it's not really. That was actually an incredibly clever way of doing it. And we saw what he did to Burgoyne last week.
Yeah. Gee, Riley
he's still, whilst he's old, he's still... he's still a quality player.
This is my point, though, that we can keep a lad like that basically fresh for half a game. Valois makes a comment in the chat about Hampton, saying it's a really low percentage for Hampton, and you combine that with his fade out in the last quarter. Well, I didn't see a fade out, but he's questioning Hampton's fitness. But there is actually an issue with Hampton's fitness that the club is acknowledging, saying that Kirtley has to build an engine. But to me, what this shows is that they're quite happy to have a bloke who plays 2/3 of the game while he develops that engine. And that's the strength of our midfield rotations at the moment, that we can have a Riley Knight and a Wayne Miller and a Kirtley Hampton who can essentially play cameos off the bench. And, you know, we were only able to name, 5 guys at a pinch out of the Port team that played midfield. And they might have had 1 or 2 others that ran through there, pretty invisibly, because I can't remember them. But we reeled off 8 players there.
They put Robbie Gray in there.
Yeah, well, Robbie Gray, he had 85% time on ground, and probably 4/5 of that was up forward. So it's just something that has come through for each of the first 3 weeks, is the fact that we have a large number of midfield players, and we're able to keep their time on ground figures very low. And each game that we've played so far this season, we have run out the game far stronger than the opposition.
Yeah, the other thing I do like, you're 100% right, by the way. Riley Knight, I do like the guy because he earns tough ball, and he also earns critical ball. And, he got slogged to beauty by Ryder, who's definitely going to get at least 1 for that. And, he still got up and played on after that, and as if, he shook his head and got on with it. I just like the guy. I think he's got a lot to offer.
I agree. Any final thoughts on this game before we move on?
Well, one more player we haven't discussed very much is Atkins. What a mixture of a game. I mean, he got 19 possessions, but I thought that he was he was on and off during the game. It wasn't quite up to his normal standard.
He was, to me, he was quite instrumental in the first half. He was doing a lot of work. But I did notice that Port were very, very conscious of him. Anytime he went anywhere near the ball, he was under a lot of pressure. And like they did with McGovern with the holding, they were doing that to Atkins as well. A lot of the one-arm holds, not allowing him to break away.
True. I won't argue about that because I saw that myself, Nikki. I do want to make a comment about the umpiring. There's one umpire in particular, the blonde-haired guy. If he is not a life member of Port Adelaide, and I will go, I'll go he for high. No, seriously, if we had an analysis of the frees given to Port Adelaide, they
were horrible both ways. And if anybody had actually watched any of the games from this round, it was horrible umpiring over the whole round. Terrible. They have completely changed the interpretations. And it's just stuffed everybody up. Nobody knew what was going on. Neither player.
Why do they have to do this?
They were missing freeze twice.
But let me finish vilifying this guy.
Because they can't coach and play in the first place. That's why. They get hung up. They have people in charge who are not umpires.
Nikki, this blonde-haired guy, I reckon he gave 2/3 of Port's freeze. Seriously, I every time they blew the whistle and he missed a fine bloody freeze, there he was again. And... I don't know why haven't we got one of these guys?
No, but Macca, I felt like what Nicky said. The umpiring was pretty crazy, and it's been crazy across the whole round. You're right. It started on Friday night when apparently when you play in Sydney, you're allowed to throw the ball or drop the ball on a tackle.
Every time. Yeah.
It ruins the game, and I just. Why? Do you know this is a Victorian mentality? They're always trying to tinker with the bloody game. They always want to just change something and make the game better and all the rest of it. And they just stuff it up. And now they've made it, again, more open to interpretation. At least in the first couple of rounds, there was a much clearer line between... It
was really clear, yeah.
Yeah, between disposing correctly and incorrectly, and et cetera, et cetera. Now we're back to... It's completely arbitrary, and it just kills the game as a spectacle, and it drives fans and I'm sure players crazy. And some of those on Friday night, and I must admit I watched Friday night and I watched last night, and I haven't watched any today, but those two games were both full of 50-50 calls that you're never going to get consistency when there's so much interpretation required to make a call.
And today, I think it was today. Yeah, over this weekend, I've seen the greatest piece of idiocy I've ever seen on a football field, and that was related to the third man up, not allowed rule, where you've got to nominate. At one stage, the ball was thrown in, and nobody was allowed to go near it because nobody had nominated. And the umpire saying, "Nobody nominated." And so the ball had to land, and then they were allowed to go after it.
It's just a nightmare.
This is grown up. This is AFL football.
I know, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the Laws of the Game Committee over a number of years have got a lot to answer for. And Kevin Bartlett was one of them because he's always this pedantic, OCD, nitpicking idiot,
dickhead,
who had a massive influence on that committee. Lee Matthews is another one that's had a massive influence on that committee. And
outdated.
The whole purpose of that committee seems to be not about administering the laws of the game, but about administering the look and feel of the game to the audience. And to me, just make the rules as black and white as you possibly can. Leave the umpires to make as minimal interpretation as you have to, because it's not an easy job. And just leave the frickin' rules alone.
I agree, totally.
Just before we end and go on to the SNFL, I saw one of the most amusing things I've ever seen on the football field. Charlie Cameron takes the ball on their half-back line. Hands off to McGovern, who does a really nice run and handballs it back to Charlie and provides a really good... Charlie takes 3 steps and still thinks he needs to bounce it. He can't count to 10, obviously. Stuffs it up, looks behind. Oh, Yeah, he's still chasing me, but he's far enough away. Takes off. Now, absolute props to Charlie. He does not pass to Uncle Eddie, which last year, you knew he was always going to pass to Eddie. No, didn't do it this time. But instead did that beautiful hit up to Otten. And then he keeps following through. And as he runs past, you can see him on the camera. He turns back, and it's obviously at Pepper Pow. He puts his arms out as if to say, what are you going to do?
Yeah, where were you?
So
was
funny.
how I interpreted that little shrug of the shoulders. He looked back and, where were you, mate? That was hilarious. I mean, the jets on that kid, it's unbelievable. Like, as you rightly pointed out, Nicky, 2 runs. The first one before he stuffed up the bounce, and then he just looked back and thought, I got you, and just accelerated again. And the great thing that we're seeing from Charlie this season over previous seasons is that he'd put on the jets and then he'd stuff the kick. But now he realises that he can put on the jets and get enough meterage ahead of his chaser that he can slow down steady, and his disposal efficiency has improved out of sight, and his delivery into the forward 50 has improved out of sight. And he is a real weapon for us, not only in that sense, but also his ability to hurt in a tackle.
And as Rue actually said, there are a lot of players with pace, but very few of them who will actually use it as a weapon.
Yeah, and he does. He's been given licence, obviously, and good on Pikey for giving him licence because it's an absolute weapon. All right, so that's Showdown 42 done to death. We're now 21 all in the bragging rights stakes, and hopefully when we meet again later in the season, we'll be able to jump ahead for the first time in quite a while, I think. When was the last time we were ahead in the bragging rights stakes?
Have we ever been ahead? I don't think we ever have been. If we have, could somebody please let us know?
No, I
can't remember it.
I think we were in front.
Oh, I don't know whether we were.
It was quite a few years ago. I reckon it was around the 05, the 06. I think it was just ahead our way.
Yeah, but Nicky, before that, they'd won about 7 or 8 in a row.
Yeah. When they were kind of getting their run on, we kind of slipped back a little bit.
I honestly can't remember us ever being in front, and look, maybe we have been, but I just can't remember it. So, if anybody knows it, let us know.
So anyway, just to draw a line under the AFL round this week, we got the ladder, and the mighty Adelaide Crows are on top with 3 wins, obviously, and a decent percentage, 136.8. The Tigers bandwagon and the Cats join us on 3 wins. We've got Port, the Giants, the Eagles, the Bombers, the D's, and the Bulldogs just out of the 8 on 2 wins. Then Saints, Suns, Maggies, Lions, Blues, Dockers, Swans, Kangaroos, and the Hawks on the bottom. Unbelievable. Swans, Kangaroos, and Hawks on the bottom.
So just before we go to the SANFL, interesting situation that, and with some of the names that have lost and the teams that are down the bottom. Who do you guys think look like premiership possibilities at this stage?
For mine, at the moment it's probably a race in 4. I reckon you'd be looking at us, Western Bulldogs, Greater Western Sydney, and I'd still have West Coast in there at the moment.
I've got 3 of the same ones as you. If Sydney ever get their full team back again, because they're playing so many juniors at the moment, if they ever get their full team back again, I still think they might be a prospect, but I have to say might be.
It's a bridge too far, Mac.
Look, you might well be right, but I just don't fancy West Coast as a premiership. They got beaten by Richmond in
they
Melbourne.
Don't have run.
Yeah, I'm with you, Nicky. I just don't see them as playing the type of style of football that wins a flag. So I think I agree with your first 3. What about you, Nicky?
Yeah, it's that game against Richmond. They had no outside run. They rely on the Hawthorn model of the kick, mark, control. They've got some good runners, but not across all the lines, and it's actually kind of easy to bottle them up. particularly on the bigger ground like the MCG.
The reason I raised it because last year there were so many prospects for it, and this year I think it's going to be a much more limited field.
I don't know about that, Macca. It's early days, and I wouldn't.
It's really hard still to gauge a form line.
Yeah, I wouldn't be riding off West Coast just yet. Hey, I want to read a couple of interesting stats to you. You'd see if you can name the player. 14 kicks, 15 handballs, 9 marks, 2 tackles, 23 uncontested possessions, 6 rebound 50s. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the leading disposal winner for Hawthorn today. Who am I talking about?
Sure.
Ricky Henderson.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, he did.
Ricky Henderson.
He did have a massive possessions, yeah. Was it 31?
29.
29, yeah.
Leading possession winner.
So maybe he's still got a bit of crows in him because we tend to play well against Gold Coast.
But I'll tell you what, Nicky, I watched that game. I never noticed him.
I still have trouble trying to pick out Lions playing for Gold Coast Suns. He apparently plays, and I've only saw him at the end with singing the song. And I was just like, oh, there he is.
Jared Lyons, 30 disposals, 2 marks, 4 tackles, 2 inside 50s, 18 contested possessions, 10 clearances. Pretty big game by our packet of chips trade.
Yeah, but again, not a dominant one.
10 clearances, come on.
No, you know, they've got blokes like Hall and...
Hall got 2 clearances. Lions got 10. Come on.
No.
Credit where it's due.
They do that. Lions does the hard work. These boys do the glamour. And I'm afraid, because I'm not really barrack of either side, I'm just watching him casually, I notice the glamour a lot more than I do the hard work.
Yeah, no, I'm pleased for Lyons that he's playing well. Gary Ablett Jr. got put back in the middle. 27 kicks, 9 handballs, if you don't mind. 4 tackles, 8 inside 50s, 14 contested possessions, 10 clearances. Rocket wants to play him in the forward pocket. Discuss.
Yeah, well, he should have got probably about 20 to 30 free kicks that he never got paid because they targeted him for the day. He was the Hawthorn target for the day, and a number of times he got put down behind play. He was being held. It was really disgusting, and it almost justifies having an umpire who just roams around looking for that sort of stuff because it's not right.
Anyway, I just thought I'd point that out because I reckon it's been ridiculous playing Ablett up forward. He's still a champion, and why wouldn't you just put him in the guts, put your youngsters around him? And
I don't know. That was bloody stupid. And anyhow, he won't be there next year.
No, he won't. Anyway, onwards to the SANFL, and it was the Adelaide SANFL Crows, 10 goals, 666, to the Mighty Blues, just failing in their valiant comeback, 9 goals, 10-64, a margin of 2 points over last year's premiers. Nikki, you went to the game, so tell us all about
it. Really, really windy. Goal scoring end was the City end, which if you looked at the scores was pretty obvious. It was very tricky. Wind to play with. It did die off in the last quarter. So even though it went to that City end, it was still hard to kick goals going that way. A lot of the times you kind of had to aim for the left-hand goalpost. The number of times, I think you got hit 3 times. It was, that was not good. The one thing I will say is that we started with Menzel in the middle, which was very interesting. Now, we've got a very, very young back line. It's mostly development players. So we actually put Gore and Wig off the half back line. So they had a couple of the more senior players, so to speak, to help them out. They did a pretty good job, considering they're undersized. We've got 2 players down there who are actually even smaller than Benjamin. Himmelberg kicked our first goal. Really lovely hands, pretty good anticipation. He just wanted to try and get himself in a better position each time. He got caught a couple of times holding the ball, but there's really something nice to work with there. Of the midfielders, so our Gallucci, his ability to actually run through a congested midfield, he just dodges and weaves and nobody can touch him.
Only
He's
13 touches though, Nick.
Yeah, he wasn't in there the whole time. We did use him a little bit, sometimes out on the wing, sometimes a little bit in the midfield. But when he did, and he got near the ball, really quality touches there. Baholke is such a really strong body, but he's also a fairly clever player as well, and was running hard.
No, he handballs a lot, Nikki.
I quite like what I saw from him. Hey?
Yeah, handballs a lot.
He does, but we've used him as he was being used a bit of that link man. Up till 3/4 time, I'd hate to think what the centre clearances were, because for Sturt it was not good. We were just absolutely smashing them. It was our AFL game plan of that hunting in packs, that maniac pressure at the ball handler, and Sturt just couldn't cope with that. And we also would set up the wall really well. We actually worked the conditions for most of the day very well. Deer had a dog of a game. Couldn't quite get near it. He's better when we don't have 3 tall on the whole time. And we pretty much had 3 tolls for most of the game. So I think that restricts him a little bit, in particularly on those smaller SNFL grounds.
Himmelberg seems to be the best of our tolls, Nikki.
Yeah, he's so tall. And they just kept giving free kicks away to him because they're just getting cannon into his back. He is still a little bit of rawness about him, but I think that's a really nice pick that's been done. Benjamin played up forward, ran hard. Did like we do that Knights role, which even though you're the half forward player, you run down to the back lines to help out. Did that same thing again. When it got wet, his class and skills actually showed. He was one grab where a lot of other players, it was slipping out of their hands and other things like that. Kicked a really nice little sharp goal that he took, little roving the pack. Did some nice movements. Didn't get a lot of the ball, but some nice movements there. Beach on the wing, Signorella on the wing, quite quick. Ran down a Sturt player at one stage, put on a bit of pressure. Again, a little raw sometimes in some of his disposal choices, but built into the game as it went along. Beach went back in the last quarter to try and stem that tide once Sturt really started to get a run on, and he started marking everything that came that way, which was quite good. Rob played a Rob game, really nice marks, contested well. Hunter did really well up until 3/4 time. Then after 3/4 time, he made 3 absolutely shocking mistakes that resulted in goals and kind of did the Sturt run on. And then there was Brad Crouch. Started quietly, didn't come on till about 8 minutes in, and then ended up with 40 possessions.
13 kicks, 27 handballs.
Yeah, he was our in and under. Greenwood and he were mostly the in and under, and sometimes when Paholke was in there, he was that inside midfielder as well. He started off with, it was a bit tentative with his kicking, and then towards the end, he was literally in beast mode. He was just breaking tackles. They were trying to grab him, and they grabbed hold of him. He was just a really nice body that we know he can do, and he had the confidence. Will he come straight in? I'm not sure. We might give him another week.
I very much doubt he would come straight in. I think that, in fact, I think they probably might even give him another 2.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be rushing him back in. Anything, I think Troy Menzel will come in before Crouch. And And they might even be tempted to give Harry Greenwood a run before Crouchy. I reckon he'll spend 3 to 4 weeks in the SANFL.
Oh, he did nicely as well, Greenwood.
I beg your pardon?
Greenwood did really nicely in midfield as well, because he was playing predominantly midfield.
Yeah. With Greenwood, do you think he's going to make an AFL footballer?
Yes.
I like what I see every time I see him, but he's still on the rookie list. I suppose that's to save money, I guess, but it makes you wonder.
He's on some very nice rookie money. He would be very much on the higher end from what I understand. But I think there might be some little bonuses or whatever in his contract. If he does go onto the main list, it's going to go up a little bit more possibly. So at the moment, we don't need him in there, but he's pushing nicely.
Okay, you're saying
he kicked 2 goals as well today.
You're saying if we got injuries, he may well be promoted for a game.
What was that? You broke up on me, Macca.
I'm sorry. If we get injuries, he might well be get a game then.
Yeah, I think he might. The other one who I'd really love to see get an AFL game at some stage is John O'Beach as well. He's just quality and class, and he deserves to show that at the AFL level at some stage. But at the moment, we're playing well-ish. I think we could be playing better, but it's hard to break into a team, and I think part of the reason why we're playing well is we've got this pressure going on in the SANFL. I went along to that SANFL game thinking we were going to get smashed.
Yeah.
Just purely by looking at our backline go, there's no AFL players. There's absolutely no AFL players there. But they played their hearts out. There's some really nice ones. I hope the club actually has vision of it and uploads it, because there was the mark of the year taken at that game by one of the shortest men on the ground, and he basically stood on the heads of, I reckon there was a ruckman in there. It was huge.
All right, well, not a bad start for the Adelaide Crows SANFL. Only going down, only getting up by 2 in the end, but good to get a win first up when possibly not expecting it against the reigning champs. That about does us for this week. Who have we got next week in terms of our fixtures? We've got the Bombers next week, don't we?
At home, yep.
Yes, Saturday night. Bombers
at home after, it'll be interesting to see how we go. They played in a slog today, so they would have... They've got a 1 day less rest and played on a heavy ground. We had a showdown, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how we pull up next week, but we should win that one fairly comfortably.
I'd be disappointed if we didn't. They are the type of team that if they run a lot and they like to play open running football.
They can come up and bite you.
If you just give them half a chance, they will do it. But the way, in the weather today and the way Carlton played them, that they never really got that going. And if you can stop that running game of theirs going, then they become very easy to beat.
I'd just like to say, turn it up to Valus on the chat. You can't call Gold Coast midfield soft with Gary Ablett racking up 40 touches. Come on now.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway,
so you're talking about Gold Coast.
He's talking about Gold Coast midfield and how to be an easy game for Brad Crouch to come back into. Well, I don't think Gold Coast are as soft as people think, and they've got the 2 tools.
No.
And they've got the game's best player of the last 10 years. We'll see. But anyway, we've got to get over the Bombers first, so let's do that.
Yep.
And see how we go. Anyway, we'll wind it up because we've gone over time as usual because we're hopeless. Thanks very much to the people on the chat that have joined us. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook, AFL Crowcast. You can follow us on Twitter, AFL Crowcast. And we will be back on Tuesday night with Tuesday Night Live, 8:30 Adelaide time, and we'll see you then. See you guys.
Yep, good night all.
See ya.